Evening, sir.
Reason for the stop, you're doing 62 and a 45. Can I see your license and registration, please?
Yeah, here you go. You know who I am, right?
Not yet, no. Just your documents for now.
Sir, title or not, the speed limit applies to everyone.
I'm issuing the citation. Keep
He thought a badge was something you could overrule with a phone call. Then the body cam went viral. Officer Ethan Cole was 34, broad-shouldered, clean-shaven, with tired blue eyes that never stopped scanning. He worked traffic in Brookstone, North Carolina, a commuter town that lived on speed traps and quiet neighborhoods. That Tuesday night, his radar lit up, a black Audi A6 doing 58 in a 35. Ethan hit the lights. The Audi pulled over fast, too fast, as if the driver wanted the stop done on his schedule. The window dropped halfway. A man in his early 40s stared out, sharp haircut, expensive watch, tailored charcoal blazer over an open-collar shirt. His smile was polite, but his eyes were impatient. "Evening, sir," Ethan said. "You were clocked at." "I know what I was clocked at," the man cut in. His voice was smooth, educated, and carrying that courtroom confidence. "You can save the script," Ethan stayed level. "License and registration." The man handed them over like he was doing a favor. The ID read, Marcushollis, Assistant District Attorney, Wake County. Ethan didn't react, just glanced back at the driver. "Mr. Hollis, do you know why I stopped you?" Marcus leaned closer to the opening, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret. "Let's be efficient. You're going to hand those back. You're going to say drive safe, and we'll both pretend this never happened." Ethan's tone didn't change. "Step back in the seat, sir. Keep your hands visible." Marcus laughed, one short, offended sound. "Officer, you're making a mistake. You write me up and I'll have your sergeant calling you by breakfast. I can do that with one call." Ethan pointed at the body cam. "This is recording." "Good," Marcus said. "Then it'll capture you harassing a prosecutor over a minor speed issue." Ethan took a breath. The road was empty. The air smelled like wet pine. He had no reason to bend and every reason not to. "I'm issuing a citation," he said. "Sign here. It's not an admission, just a promise to appear." Marcus' smile vanished. "I don't sign anything." Ethan's voice hardened a notch. "Refusal escalates the stop. Don't do that." Marcus lifted his phone. "Watch me." "I'm calling the chief." Ethan stepped back, hand resting near his belt, not threatening, ready. "Put the phone down." Marcus stared, stunned that someone had told him no. Then he spoke like a man reading law to a jury. "You do not have probable cause to detain me beyond the scope of this stop. You are violating my rights. You were speeding," Ethan said, clear and loud. "You're refusing lawful instructions." "That's on you." For a second, the prosecutor's mask slipped. Rage flashed, then settled into a cold decision. "All right," Marcus said softly. "We'll do it your way. You'll regret it." Ethan finished the citation, documented the refusal to sign, and handed the copy through the window. Marcus didn't take it. He just stared at the camera and said, "This officer will be dealt with." Ethan walked back to his cruiser with that sentence hanging in the air like a threat with paperwork behind it. He had no idea the speeding stop was about to collide with a case his wife had tried to forget for years. By noon the next day, Ethan's name was everywhere inside the department, never a good sign. Ethan reported the stop exactly as policy demanded: radar reading, location, timestamp, Marcus Hollis' refusal to sign, and the line he delivered to the body cam like a verdict. "This officer will be dealt with." Captain Dana Rourke called Ethan into her office before his shift even began. She was 46, Irish-American, short auburn hair, the kind of supervisor who survived by staying calm in storms. She pointed at her monitor. "Wake County DA's office called," she said. "They want your body cam file." Ethan kept his voice steady. "They can request it through records like anyone else." Dana's eyes narrowed with a hint of approval. "Good answer, but they're not asking, they're pressuring." Within 48 hours, Ethan felt the pressure. His overtime got reevaluated. His patrol area changed. A complaint appeared in Internal Affairs claiming Ethan had targeted the Audi and used an aggressive tone. The complaint had no witness name, only a typed statement that sounded like it was drafted by someone who billed in 6-minute increments. At home, his wife tried to make it feel normal. Nora Cole was 32, a public defender turned paralegal. With dark curly hair she usually pinned back in eyes that had learned to hide old fear. She poured coffee like it was armor. "They can't punish you for doing your job," she said. Ethan didn't answer right away. He watched their kitchen window, the quiet street beyond. "They can try," he said. "And he will." Nora's fingers tightened around the mug. "Holly's that name, I've heard it." Ethan looked up. "From where?" She hesitated, as if choosing whether to reopen something sealed. "From before we met," she said quietly. "From the Collier case." Ethan knew that case only as a shadow in her past. Years ago, Nora had been a young defense investigator working a corruption trial involving a contractor named Victor Collier. Witnesses had started disappearing from the schedule, not dead, just gone, moved, vanished, no forwarding address, no phone. The case had collapsed into a plea that felt like surrender. Nora swallowed. Back then, I kept a notebook, she said. Names, dates, people who called me and then stopped returning calls. I always wondered if someone on the prosecution side was cleaning the board. Ethan felt his stomach tighten. And you think Hollies was involved? I think he was on the team, Nora said. Young, ambitious, everybody said he was untouchable. Ethan drove to the station with that thought circling like a siren. Hollies wasn't just a bully with a title. He might be a man with history that intersected with Nora's missing witnesses. That night, Ethan's cruiser got flagged for a random inspection. The tech found nothing. The point wasn't to find. The point was to remind him who could reach him. And when Ethan got home, a manila envelope sat on his porch with no return address. Inside was a photocopy of Nora's old investigator ID and a note in block letters. Drop it, semvolove espero beyel ami, 3226. The envelope wasn't subtle. It was a message delivered like a subpoena, silent, official, and meant to scare. If you want the rest, subscribe and like. This is the part where the story stops being a traffic stop and becomes a full-scale exposure risk. Ethan didn't show the note to Nora at first. He photographed everything, bagged it with gloves, and took it straight to Captain Dana Rourke. Dana read the note once, then looked at Ethan like she was recalculating. This isn't about speeding, she said. No, Ethan replied. It's about control. Internal Affairs logged it as potential intimidation. The county prosecutor's office denied any involvement within an hour. Too fast, too polished. Marcus Hollies filed a statement calling Ethan unprofessional. Dana made the one call that mattered. She requested the State Bureau of Investigation liaison to review the intimidation report due to possible conflict of interest at the county level. 2 days later, Agent Lionel Price walked into Brookstone PD. Mid-50s, black, silver hair at the temples, suit that looked like it belonged in a federal building. He shook Ethan's hand firmly. I'm here because someone with a license to prosecute appears to be weaponizing the system, Price said. Ethan's bodycam footage became Exhibit A. The threat, the refusal, the tone, not emotional, documented. Price asked one question that cut through everything. Why do you think he targeted you? Ethan told him about Nora's notebook, the Collier case, and the witnesses who vanished before trial. Price's eyes sharpened. Victor Collier, he repeated. That file has ghosts. Nora didn't want to reopen it, but she did. She dug out the old notebook from a storage box under the bed, pages yellowed, handwriting tight with anxiety, names of witnesses. Dates they were scheduled, notes like, moved suddenly, phone disconnected. And in the margin beside 2 names, Hollies. I never proved anything, Nora said. I was 24. Everyone told me I was paranoid. Price copied the pages and built a timeline. He ran background on the missing witnesses. Some had resurfaced under new names. One took a job 3 states away the week before testimony, as if someone had arranged a new life overnight. Then Price found a thread, a private security consulting firm that billed the county under vague line items during the Collier prosecution. The same firm appeared again in recent budgets. The firm was registered to a shell company. The shell company's legal contact was Marcus R. Hollies. It wasn't just influence, it was infrastructure. Hollies responded by turning up the heat. Ethan got pulled over off-duty by a neighboring agency for a broken taillight that wasn't broken. Nora's workplace received an anonymous email accusing her of evidence tampering. Agent Price warned them both. He thinks he can exhaust you, he said. He'll keep tapping pressure points until you fold. Ethan looked at Nora. She was pale, but her voice didn't shake. We don't fold, she said. That night someone cut power to their house for 7 minutes, long enough to rattle them, short enough to deny intent. In the dark, Ethan heard a car idle outside. When the lights came back, the car was gone. The note's meaning didn't change. Drop it. Marcus Hollies didn't panic. He optimized. He treated Ethan like a problem to be managed, not a person to be respected. Agent Price moved fast and quiet. He didn't announce an investigation. He built one. Subpoenas went out through the state level, not the county. Financial records first, because influence always leaves invoices. The security consulting firm turned out to be called Northbridge Solutions. The name sounded clean, but the billing wasn't. Payments aligned with the dates Nora's witnesses vanished. And every payment was approved through a chain that, on paper, never touched Hollies directly. On paper. In reality, Price found a private email server tied to Northbridge's domain. The admin login was registered to a personal number. Hollies' number. Price needed leverage, not guesses. So he put a soft net around Hollies, monitored court filings, tracked meetings, watched for contact with Northbridge employees. And he warned Ethan, don't go looking for a hero moment. Stay boring. Boring wins in court. Hollies couldn't stand boring. He escalated again. A week after the stop, a clip hit social media. Ethan's bodycam chopped and captioned to look like harassment. The audio was trimmed right before Ethan explained the speed. A narrator's voice, fake, dramatic, called Ethan a rogue officer. Brookstone PD got flooded with complaints. Captain Rourke pulled Ethan off traffic for administrative stability. It wasn't punishment, it was containment. Ethan understood the move, but it still burned. Holly's had turned a lawful stop into a PR weapon. Then came the real hit. Ethan received notice of a civil suit. Holly's alleged emotional distress, unlawful detention, abuse of authority. It was theater designed to scare departments into settling, but Price saw something else. Discovery: if Holly's pushed it, he'd be forced to produce records. Nora, meanwhile, started doing what she'd always done, finding people. She pulled old case contacts, ran public databases, and followed a single name that kept reappearing. Marlene Stafford, a witness who had vanished the night before she was supposed to testify in the Collier case. Marlene's last known address was in a small town outside Richmond, Virginia. Nora drove there with Ethan's blessing and Agent Price's caution. The house was small, mailbox crooked, curtains drawn. An older woman answered the door, eyes sharp with practiced suspicion. "I'm not talking," the woman said before Nora finished her first sentence. Nora held up her old investigator ID like a relic. "Marlene," she said softly, "I'm not here to drag you into court. I'm here because they used you. And they're still using people." The woman's face twitched, anger and fear fighting for control. "They said I'd lose my kids," she whispered. "They said they'd ruin me." Nora's voice stayed steady. "Who said it?" Marlene's eyes flicked to the side as if the name could hear her. "A man from Northbridge," she said, "and a lawyer. He wasn't a lawyer back then, he was hungry." Nora felt the room tilt. "Marcus Hollies." Marlene didn't nod. She didn't have to, her silence was a confession. Agent Price arranged protective paperwork within hours. Marlene agreed to give a formal statement if she could do it somewhere safe. The next day, Price sat across from her in a secured interview room and recorded every word. The threats, the relocation, the cash, the warning that the prosecutor will take care of you if you cooperate. That statement didn't prove everything yet, but it proved enough to stop being a theory. And when Hollies learned, somehow, that a witness had resurfaced, he made a mistake he couldn't undo. He called Northbridge. The call to Northbridge was the first time Marcus Hollies acted like a defendant instead of a king. Agent Price had already secured a lawful wire order tied to the Northbridge shell, built on Marlene Stafford's statement and the intimidation pattern around Ethan and Nora. So when Hollies dialed, Price didn't have to guess. He listened. Holly's voice came through clean and controlled. "We have a problem," he said. A man answered, cautious. "You said you were done calling this line." "I'm done when I say I'm done," Holly snapped. A witness popped back up, Stafford. Handle it how?" the man asked. There was a pause, just long enough for Hollies to decide what to admit. "Move her again," he said, "or scare her quiet, I don't care which. Just make her disappear from this." Price stopped the recording and stared at the waveform like it was a confession written in sound. Within hours, warrants landed on a judge's desk in Raleigh, not Brookstone. Search warrants for Holly's office, his home, and every digital account tied to Northbridge. A separate order required his immediate surrender of devices to prevent destruction of evidence. When the warrants were served, Hollies didn't scream. He smiled, the same smile he'd worn on the roadside. "This is political," he told the agents. "You'll be embarrassed." Price didn't argue. Agents boxed computers, bagged phones. Copied drives. In Holly's home office, they found a locked drawer with a second phone, burner style, no contacts saved. The messages were short, coded and damning. "Stafford active. Relocate. Payment approved." At the station, Ethan watched the process from a distance, feeling a strange mix of relief and dread. Relief that the system was moving. Dread because men like Hollies didn't stop fighting, they just changed weapons. That evening, Ethan got a call from an unknown number. He put it on speaker with Price present. Holly's voice purred through the line. "Officer Cole, you happy now?" Ethan kept his tone flat. "Stop contacting me." "Oh, I will," Holly said. "When you and your wife learn what you've done, you just dragged her past into daylight." "You think that won't have consequences?" Nora's face went pale at the mention of her past. Ethan felt anger rise, but he kept it boxed. "This is being recorded," he said. Hollies laughed softly. "Record it." "I want it on record that I warned you." Agent Price leaned toward the phone. "Mr. Hollies," he said calmly, "you are now threatening a witness and an officer during an active investigation." The line went dead. Price didn't look surprised. "He can't help himself," he said. "He thinks talking is controlling." The next morning, the Attorney General's office filed new charges. Obstruction, witness tampering, abuse of public office, and retaliation. Holly's license status was flagged. His access badge to the courthouse was revoked. And when he tried to walk into his office anyway, deputies met him at the door. He protested loudly as if volume could rewrite law. "I am the state," he shouted. The deputies didn't flinch. They turned him, cuffed him, and read him the charges he'd spent years weaponizing against others. The irony didn't move him. But the camera did, and for the first time, Marcus Hollis looked straight into a lens and realized the story wasn't his to edit anymore. Hollis fought the indictment the way he'd fought everything, by attacking the people around the facts. His defense team arrived like a corporate takeover, 2 senior attorneys from Charlotte, a PR consultant, and a stack of motions designed to slow time. They tried to suppress the wire. They tried to discredit Marlene Stafford as unstable, and they aimed straight at Nora. They filed a complaint accusing her of improper investigator conduct on the old Collier case, suggesting she had coerced witnesses, fabricated notes, and now had a personal vendetta. It was a classic reversal, turn the whistleblower into the suspect. Nora read the filing at the kitchen table, hands shaking just enough to be visible. Ethan wanted to rip it apart with anger, but Captain Rourke's voice stayed in his head. Stay boring. Boring wins. Agent Price didn't sugarcoat it. They're trying to contaminate the jury pool and rattle your wife, he said. If you react emotionally, they'll frame it as guilt. So Ethan did the only thing he could do. He kept working. He kept showing up. He let the documents speak. Special Prosecutor Elaine Mercer, appointed to avoid county conflicts, built the case like a blueprint. She didn't chase drama. She chased corroboration. She located 2 more former witnesses tied to Collier who had relocated under employment assistance that traced back to Northbridge's shell payments. Both agreed to testify once they realized Hollis was no longer untouchable. In court, Hollis sat in a tailored suit, jaw tight, eyes cold. He watched the room like he was still evaluating jurors for a trial he controlled, but he wasn't on the bench, he was at the table. Marlene Stafford testified first. She described a meeting in a parking lot years ago, the threats, the promise of protection if she stayed quiet. When Mercer asked who delivered the message, Marlene said the name clearly. Marcus Hollis. The defense tried to shred her. They suggested she wanted money. They suggested she wanted attention. Marlene looked at them and said, I wanted my kids safe, that's all. Then the wire recording played. Holly's voice, clean and certain, move her again, make her disappear. The courtroom didn't gasp, it didn't need to. The jurors' faces changed, small, permanent shifts. Ethan testified about the traffic stop, the threats, the note on the porch, the pressure on the department. He didn't call Hollis evil. He called him what he was, a man who believed rules were optional. Nora didn't take the stand. Mercer kept her out of the blast radius on purpose. Instead, she introduced Nora's notebook as a contemporaneous record, authenticated by date stamps and storage metadata, supported by third-party email threads from that time. Boring, solid, hard to spin, Hollis took the stand against his lawyer's advice. He couldn't stand not speaking. He insisted the call was misinterpreted, the messages out of context, the witnesses confused. Mercer asked him one question. Why did you threaten Officer Cole on camera during a traffic stop? Hollis stared, then answered with a mistake, because he needed to understand consequences. Mercer nodded, like she'd been waiting for that. So you admit you use consequences as a tool. Hollis realized too late what he'd given her. By the end of the week, the jury didn't need a cinematic twist. They had a pattern, a timeline, and a voice on tape. And when they returned the verdict, Marcus Hollis didn't look shocked. He looked offended. Marcus Hollis expected the verdict to be negotiable. He expected someone somewhere to owe him. Subscribe and like before the finish, because the last chapter isn't loud, it's final. Sentencing happened in Raleigh, in a courtroom that didn't know Holly's local allies and didn't care. The judge, Hun. Patricia Wynn was in her early 60s, silver hair cut short, eyes that made even seasoned attorneys sit straighter. She read the case summary like it was a ledger of trust, broken line by line. Special Prosecutor Mercer didn't ask for revenge, she asked for accountability. This wasn't a single lapse, she said. It was a sustained abuse of office. Witnesses were pressured. Lives were disrupted. The public was misled. The defense begged for mercy with polished phrases. Community service, a promising career, stress. Hollis stood to speak, and for 1 second he tried to sound contrite. Then his old reflex returned. I have served this state, he said sharply. I have put criminals away, and now I'm being punished because a traffic cop wanted to make headlines. Ethan sat in the back row, uniform pressed, hands clasped. He didn't move. He didn't react, he just watched the system do what it was supposed to do. Judge Wynn leaned forward. Mr. Hollis, she said, voice calm, you were not convicted because of a traffic stop. You were convicted because you used your position to interfere with justice. She sentenced him under state guidelines, prison time for obstruction and witness tampering, followed by supervised release, mandatory ethics and compliance courses if he ever sought reinstatement, and strict no-contact orders regarding all witnesses and Officer Cole's family. She also forwarded the matter to the state bar with a recommendation for disbarment. Holly's face tightened as if he'd been slapped by paper. This is outrageous, he muttered. Judge Wynn didn't look up. It is proportional, she said. And it is documented. Outside the courthouse, cameras caught Hollies in cuffs, still trying to speak like he was in charge, but the deputies didn't slow. They guided him into a transport van and closed the door on the last of his courtroom swagger. The weeks that followed were quieter. Brookstone PD cleared Ethan's record officially. The edited clip that had tried to paint him as a villain got corrected by the full bodycam release, raw, uncut, boring in the best way. Complaints evaporated, the overtime returned. The patrol zone went back to normal. Nora's name, once dragged through filings, got protected by the same paperwork that had once failed her. Witnesses who had lived in fear sent short messages through the prosecutor's office. Thank you, nothing dramatic, just relief. One night, months later, Ethan and Nora sat on their porch with the porch light on and the street quiet again. Nora rested her head on his shoulder, breathing steady. I kept thinking I was powerless back then, she said. Like the case just died. Ethan squeezed her hand. It didn't die, he said. It waited for the right angle. And the right camera. They didn't celebrate. They didn't need to. Justice wasn't a victory lap. It was a line that finally held. If you made it to the end, hit like and subscribe. New stories like this drop regularly. And tell me in the comments, when someone powerful threatens the system, should the punishment be harsher because they knew better, or exactly the same as everyone else?